The Dacia Sandero is the car version of one of those stupid universal myths we all had back at primary school. Like the one about Marilyn Manson having a few ribs removed, or if the teacher's 15 minutes late, you get to go home early, because everyone seems to think the Sandero is the UK's cheapest new car, but that is a myth. It is not the UK's cheapest new car, and it hasn't been for a while, because that's now the Citroen Ami, which is an £8,000 quadricycle technically. One of these is now 14 grand, which is actually quite a lot of money for a basic Sandero. This used one, in its most basic spec as we have here, is still £10,500. So in this video, we're going to find out if it still represents good value on the used market, or if it's actually about as much use as one of Marilyn Manson's ribs. Now, I've always liked how basic Dacia does motoring. It does it really well, and this is about as basic as things come. It's an essential trim car, so it comes in UN Relief Convoy white, it gets black mirror caps, it gets black door handles, hell, it even gets hubcaps over steel wheels, so it's really basic. And when it was new, you could pay £650 more to have it in grey or black, so it was never going to be an exciting car, but it does get the new kind of LED daytime running light signature that looks a bit like the branch on a tree. Sort of. At 4 meters long, the Dacia Sandero is a rival for things like the Corsa, the Clio, the Fiesta, the Hyundai i20. And new, it is cheaper than all of those cars, but used, it's actually a fairly similar price, which is why I think it's quite a hard value proposition secondhand. But anyway, when this version came out in 2021, Dacia are very excited about the fact they've tightened up all the panel gaps, especially around the fuel filler cap, just to make it feel higher quality, which I'm still not entirely sure about. But whatever. Now, I should point out that 60% of Sanderos sold in the UK are the stepway version, which is 36mm taller, and you get a bit more headroom, and it feels a bit more, not off-roady, but a bit more rugged. Personally, I've always liked Dacia's back-to-basics approach for interior design, but this makes an entry-level Vauxhall Corsa feel as posh as a BMW 7 Series. It is super grey in here. Dacia even calls this plastic fog grey. Think the stuff on the back of your TV, and that's what you've got here. You have got a tiny little digital display in the middle, in between two analog dials, so you can see MPG and things like that. You've got a little cubby down here, you've got a 12 volt, you've got manual air conditioning, which is fine. What more do you need? You've got cruise control as well. What you haven't got is an infotainment system at all. You've got DAB radio, which you control through here, but the idea is this little flap, you wedge your smartphone in there, and you've got a USB socket right next to it, so you can use Google Maps on your phone, and that's really solidly held in there. That is smart thinking. The handbrake is a bit weird. You have got an armrest as standard, but you've got to do a bit of a reach around to get to the handbrake. The glove box opens, it's only half width because it's based on a French car, so yeah, the fuse box is in there. But you have got this curious little strap, it's got a fabric strap on the glove box. If this was a Porsche, they would like sell you that for another £1,000 as a lightweight racing edition. The door bins are plasticky, but they're big enough. I've got cup holders down here. It's actually fine. When you get used to the fact it feels very cheap in here, because it is cheap, it's actually okay. A bit like me, what the Dacia Sandero lacks in style, it makes up for in headroom. It's really roomy in here in terms of headroom for rear passengers. I've actually got enough knee room. I'm 6'3", and that is in my driving position. It's a really squidgy seat back, so if you're even taller than me, you'll be fine. I've got loads of room for my trotters. The middle seat is nice and wide. There's a small hump in the floor. That's about where the good bits end, frankly, in here. I've got wind down windows, which don't go all the way down, as you can see. I've got no USBs, no charging, nothing back here, not even a center armrest. I've got 2 speakers, it's very plasticky, but do you know what? It's fine. It's about the same rear seat room as you get in the equally priced Citroen C3. It's just not as stylish. The Sandero is not going to win these style points around the back, but the eagle eye among you might have noticed it's got a biofuel badge, because this has got the 1 litre petrol and it's got 100 horsepower, and you can fill it with petrol or LPG, and if you fill both tanks up, you can go quite far. I think it's something like 650 miles. Don't quote me on that, but you can quote me on the boot size. 328 litres, which is about 20 more than in a Vauxhall Corsa, and it's actually quite a big space for a smallish car. It's really deep, and there's a mother of all load lips here that drops about a foot into the boot, but if you want a smallish car with a big boot, this is one of the better options out there. It's got nothing fancy. There's a few hooks here for your carrier bags, and the rear seats only fold in like a 1/3, 2/3 split on this entry-level model, but it's all right. Not sexy, but practical. Right, let's go for a drive in the Dacia Sandero, and this bit might be a bit longer than usual because there's plenty to talk about. Let's talk about the way it feels to start with. My driving position is slightly twisted with the pedals being offset towards the door, and the clutch is a little bit springy. It's kind of got a higher car vibe about it, to put it politely. But I have to say, this 100 horsepower LPG/petrol engine is pretty gutsy when you rev it out. So it's fast enough. 0 to 60 is about 11 seconds. That's not really relevant. You can get a 90 horsepower version, which is just petrol on its own, and you only get the full 100 horsepower out of this if you're on LPG, and you switch using a little button down here. And while we're talking about LPG, I should point out that you can't actually get LPG at many places in the UK anymore. It's getting less and less popular. I don't know if it's going to be phased out completely, and it's not as cheap as it used to be. It used to be 80p a litre. It's more like at £1 something now. So you're not making a massive saving on fuel costs. But yeah, the rest of the driving experience in this is actually surprisingly okay. Yes, as we'll see, it rolls a bit going around corners, and the brakes are a little bit soft, but yeah, it's a cheap car. It's not unpleasant. It's based on newer Renault models, so actually the underpinnings are pretty decent. Just feels cheap. And you have to adjust the mirrors manually, like you're in an old Peugeot 205 or something. You could say it's charming to drive. I would say it's just a bit old school. And it's got a 2-star Euro NCAP safety rating, because although it scores well for adult and child occupancy protection, it doesn't score so well on the electronics technology front. The automatic emergency braking can't detect cyclists. It hasn't got lane keep assists. You might think that's a good thing, because that does get a bit annoying in some cars. And the bonnet can't pop up to protect the head of pedestrians that you run over. So yeah, just go in with your eyes open. But the driving experience, I would say, is perfectly acceptable. Anyway, let's head back to the churchyard for a conclusion. Oh look, we're here. It actually worked out for once. No video magic. So does the Dacia Sandero still represent good value for money motoring? Well, yes, but not quite as good as it used to. 14 grand for a new one is pretty salty. The economy has moved on and Dacia's prices have had to go with it. But on the second-hand market, it's in even murkier waters, frankly. For 10.5 grand, you can get a really good choice of slightly older, admittedly, things like Polos and Corsas, which do just feel quite a lot plusher. But in isolation, this does everything just about okay. It feels robust enough. It gets okay MPG, it's okay to drive. Its real highlights are the practicality and the rear seat space and the boot space and things like that. So don't come to it expecting something super sexy and super glamorous, and do shop around if you're buying second hand, because you can get more car for your money than the Dacia. Thank you for watching this video and the demise of my dignity. If you've liked it, please hit like, subscribe to the Motorpoint YouTube channel, go down to the comments and tell us what car you would buy for just over £10,000. See you next time.